I got 4 boxes of games and books from the post yesterday. These I posted from my old house. I'm not really leaving you much time to read those titles in case you're interested, but I just thought I'd give you a quick look, just in case anyone was interested. But really, it's a preamble to show you these 2 games that well, I'm going to give you a quick look at 2 games here that I think we can place under the same banner of dueling games. They're called Mind War and Ultra Warrior, and essentially what I mean by dueling games is that each player has one character or one unit, and that unit is a single person, and throughout the game you basically duke it out against the other player or players, and I think generally the winner's always going to be the last one standing. At least it is in these 2 games. So they are there's Ultra Warrior, which is a task force game, and Mind War, the Warriors of the Green Planet, which is from Fact and Fantasy Games. Now, Mind War was written by Richard R. Jordison from the St. Louis Fantasy Wargaming Society, and it's from 1976. Ultra Warrior, on the other hand, was designed by Thomas Zarbok, and it is from, where's the date? I think we've got one somewhere here. I'll just have a quick look. That's the map for Mind War we're looking at there. 1981. So there's 5 years between these 2 games, and one's sort of from a professional company and the other's obviously not. Yeah, I think we'll start with Ultra Warrior first, purely because that was the one I played first, and there's a lot of similarities in them in that they're light games. They have few rules, and they take maybe half an hour, or in the case of Mind War, even less, maybe 10 minutes to play. And they're both fun within the limited sort of situation which you're given. What you're seeing here with the Ultra Warrior is there's an Ultra Warrior here and an Ultra Warrior here. They started at opposite ends of the board, and it's there's various scenarios in Ultra Warrior pitting between 1 and 4 Ultra Warriors against each other, and they happen on different planets. So you can see there's some numbers and writing on here. So scenario 4, you would place forests in that hex. I'm on scenario 1, so I place forests in these hexes. And then there was this is a line of ice, and then over here is a pool. These are water that you can't, they're actually well distinguished in the actual game. It's not so clear on film, and that ran off. So we had that splitting the whole of the board, and then there was forest, and forest, and then these flames you see here are where the Ultra Warriors, using their weapons, have turned the forest into flames. And then even here we have 2 lava hexes, where hexes that were, I believe they were clear originally, been turned into lava. So that gives you the flavour of the game. Essentially what you are, you have your warrior, and you have to keep a log sheet of it, so you need a pencil and paper, although a Board Game Geek user, Judd, has pasted an A4 sheet you can use to track it with counters. So you start off with energy, normally 150. You start off with 0 energy put into your shields. You have an environmental suit which has 30 points, and you have 6 life points. So they both started off like that. Then each turn, at the beginning of the turn, you decide how much energy you're going to put into your shield. and then so you could put 0, none, 150 if you wish, but considering that the most damage any one weapon can do is 10, you would do that accordingly. However, there are 6 action points used each turn, so you could potentially be hit 6 times because it generally costs 1 action point to fire or 1 action point to move 1 hex. And then you roll die to see who goes first, and the first person spends an action point, so they'd either move or fire, and possibly it takes 2 action points to move into a forest hex. I'm not sure what that one's doing there. I think I meant to take that off. I moved it back. 2 action points to move into forest hex, 2 action points to create a defensive shield around yourself, or 2 action points to do something else. I can't remember which. So that's your choice, and there's no facing, so that doesn't matter. You just move or fire. And you have a chart, so energy cost, so you have to spend energy, action point cost, which I just explained, and then there's the damage it does. So you see you can choose whether to do a heat blast, frostbolt. They can affect, heat blast and frostbolt can affect terrain. So sorry, where's that? Here. So clear terrain hit by heat blast will turn to lava. Forests hit by heat turn to fire, etc. So you could change water to clear potentially, although not if it's like it only lasts for 1 turn if it's a continuous body of water, because the rest flows into it. So you can see it's a very simple system. There's sort of various different things you can do. You can create an energy barrier, that's that disc there, that will defend you against attacks, but then an enemy could create a disruptor which would disrupt that energy barrier. You could create smoke, which means you're hidden, or you could hide in the forest, because interestingly line of sight does not extend into a forest hex, although you can shoot out of it, so you're hidden in a forest hex. But if someone fires a weapon at you and they miss you, it's deemed to hit the hex. So if they fired a heat blast, the forest will turn to fire, and essentially that's what happened here. This blue fellow had moved up, he was hiding here, and the green fellow was over here, shot a heat blast, destroy the forest, so he had to move out, or else the next turn he would have taken damage. So he was kind of moved along like that. He had some similar effects happen here, and then this guy managed to get the better of this fellow by he decided rather than going for a kind of like I don't know, a weapons race, so it's like I'm casting all these, which is going to cause you to spend, you're assuming I'm going to be casting, so you're going to be putting up your shields at the beginning of the turn. You can't put up your shield during the turn, so I'm making you expend energy by powering your shields. He decided, otherwise, I was kind of at a loss. How does 2 equally matched warriors fight each other? Bar, when you cast your thing, you do have a range that it can fight, and you have to roll under this number on 2d6 or less, so you might miss, so nothing's a dead cert, although at short ranges it almost is. But essentially what happened in this duel was that the blue fellow started deliberately firing at the ground under this guy, so he had to use his turns to move, so then the next turn he could fire at him, and he hadn't powered up his shield very high. His EC suit dropped right down. Well, that I should have crossed that off, because the last bit got crossed off, and then he lost his life points. Okay, I mixed my guys up there, but never mind. So yeah, it was this nice, simple, quick duel. It took me about half an hour to play, including or maybe 5 minutes setup, half an hour to play. So that's essentially Ultra Warrior in a nutshell. Now the next game is dueling game here is called Mind War, and the graphic for the board is quite deceptive, because it says that these spaces actually represent mental spaces, but they chose to graphically depict it by, essentially it looks like what a lot of you probably recognise as old kind of like dungeon tiles. You know, these look like walls or floors of a dungeon connected by passages, walls or something like that. So it reminds me of a castle or a dungeon, something very concrete, when it's actually supposed to be very mental. Anyway, what happens is you have characters. They have become from 1 to 3 classes. So the second class fellows are better than the first class fellows, and the third class fellows are better than the second class fellows. And they each have, on the other side, they have psychic points. So the first class guys only have 4, second have 10, and the third have 16. Now at the beginning of each game you roll one. No, you don't roll d6, you take a chit. So you take a chit, and that number will indicate what you add to your psychic points. So you can see from my game, this guy only had 1 to add, whereas this guy had, you can't read that, but that's a 6. He had 6 to add. So they both started with 4, so we could tell it was going to be a very unbalanced game from the start. But essentially then what you do is it's pre-plotted, so there's very little to plot. You write down, okay, well, for the first game turn, you just automatically enter at any space in the mind space that you like. So I just simply entered them like that, and you would also have like attacks plotted, but attacks can only go up to 2 spaces, so there would be no. In my case, there was no attacking on the first turn. Then the next turn, you plot movement, attack, defense, and reserves using your psychic strength. So this guy's got 4 + 1, 5. He's got 4 + 6, 10. So a movement costs, to move 1 mind space costs 1 point. To move 2 costs 4. So you can see there's an exponential increase there. So that gives you the kind of the tactics, because you know it's going to cost someone a lot to move far. So they're probably, you know, it's not, they have to think about it quite a lot. And then, so that's so this guy was moving from here to space 6, which would cost him 1 strength. Then he was going to do an attack costing 2 strength. And attacks have a range of 2, so that was going to go from 16 to 15, which meant, oh, I miscalculated that, because that 16 to 15's there, so I was thinking he was going to be there. Maybe I put him there to start with. I can't, no, I was moving to 6. Well, anyway, say the attack would have been from there to there, or it could have been from there to there, or from there to there, or from there to there, and so on. You would decide how much strength you would put into it. Then you'd also decide how you would defend, and you would defend against, from where you moved to, you would defend, say, defend 1 point from 7. So anybody attacking from 7, any attack coming from there, you would have 1 point defense in it. And then, although with the lowest grade you're not supposed to have reserves, I decided to use it just for my first game, just to see how the game plays. Then you can put between 0 to 2 points in reserve. Effectively what that means is that after the plotting you do your movement, so pshong, and he went pshong, and then there you can say, ah right, so he's moved there, I thought he was going to move there, so I didn't think he was going to attack me from here, so blah blah. But so essentially with your reserve you can add it to an already plotted defense or attack. You cannot create a new defense or attack. So you can see it's a very kind of calculating game, that you're trying to outguess your opponent, and you don't know your opponent's exact strength. At any point you can if someone's made a mistake plotting, they lose the game, and you can check after the game, check that someone didn't plot over their strength and so forth, or else they would forfeit the game. And then what happens is, say that for argument's sake he was defending 1 from 11, and he was attacking with 2 points through 11 and 16. Then that means 1 point of his attack would get through. Then you would look down here at the attack strength, and you would say, okay, so 1 point of attack strength got through. I roll the die, and on a 1 I cause 1 point of strength. What actually happened to me in my game where was so quick was because these guys got to this point. This guy, he cast